different consumer application with a partner called Thinaire, and I'm originally from Detroit. Detroit Pistons, Auburn Hills, the Palace where they play, that's basketball. 100 Beacons, Watson is real-time analyzing the sentiment of the fans, matching that with what's happening on the floor in the game, real-time offers actually related to what just happened to any player, going to every individual custom. Another way, you can imagine you would engage and do this with any kind of place where consumers aggregate together. Let me now, with great pleasure, give a little introduction to my first guest. Many of you know him, Kevin Plank. He is the founder, CEO of Under Armour. He is certainly one of this nation's, if not the world's, most successful entrepreneurs. As you know, Under Armour already at $4 billion, 14,000 employees. And Kevin, he'll tell you himself, his mission is simple: to make all athletes better through passion, design, and of course, relentless pursuit of innovation. I have gotten to know Kevin. You will find he is just getting started. And we are announcing here today our partnership, and you're going to see the beginning of the app that's rolling out now to transform personal health and fitness. Kevin coined the word connected fitness. UA Record is their dashboard. It will be powered by Watson. Think of this as the Internet of athletes. So let me ask you to welcome Kevin Blank to the stage with me. Kevin? This way. Hey, bud, here.
Ooh, thank you so much.
The world's most successful entrepreneur here, right? So,
that's a big claim, but thank you very much for having us today, Jim.
My pleasure. Look, so Kevin and I are going to do a little Q&A, and then he's going to do a bit of a demo here.
Yes.
So for those of you that don't know, Under Armour formed in 1988. It is an amazing story, right? So let me have you just tell the group here a little bit about the Under Armour of today.
Well, thank you, first of all, for allowing myself here to be able to tell the Under Armour story with the positioning of IBM, particularly IBM Watson, what that is going to be able to do, A, for our company, and ultimately be able to give back to help enrich lives for our consumers. So at Under Armour, we're entering our 20th year in business as we started. And we began in 1996. I was a football player in college that didn't like the way my cotton t-shirt felt beneath my equipment and wondered why no one ever made a better alternative to a short-sleeve cotton t-shirt in the summer or a long-sleeve cotton t-shirt in the winter. And that's gone from taking us from a company that's changed the way that athletes dress, including some that I've seen here in the convention. They say, hey, are you the Under Armour guy? And I get grown men pulling their underwear out of their pants at me.
I don't get that when I meet men.
Not yet, no. We didn't rehearse that one, Ginny. To truly changing the way that athletes live. You know, we're coming here today with an ecosystem that has, today, counting more than 160 million people amongst our connected 4 apps that we have. And the question that we want to answer and why IBM Watson can be such a difference for our brand is that why is it that we know more about our own cars than we do about our own bodies? Think about it. We get into our cars, we know how much gas, we know how much oil, we know how much tire pressure. We can run diagnostics from Detroit. But when you ask us about our own health, where I say, how many days were you sick last year? Most of us just say, I don't know, not so many. If you ask me, I'd say, I don't know, I get sick every time it goes from summer into fall, every time it goes from winter back into spring, I catch a cold. But imagine if we actually had data that could help us make that decision and make it better. So when you think about that, imagine what that could mean for you as you look at life. And that's where we basically began to create this ecosystem that we call Connected Fitness that began just about 2 years ago.
So Connected Fitness, and I would recommend to anyone in the audience, a Wired magazine article came out just 2 days ago. I don't know if I hope you've read it. It's a great article about Under Armour.
Yes.
And really, Kevin kind of coined, I think, this phrase, Connected Fitness.
Yes.
And in fact, you're the original wearables in many ways, traditional and now new.
True.
So talk a little bit about Connected Fitness.
So more than 2 years ago, we looked at our company, and today 14,000, a little more than 8,000 just a couple years ago. And you look at the size and scale we had, and we said we didn't have enough really smart people. We didn't have enough engineers working in our business, attracting them to sporting goods. And so the goal we had is that while we recognized the future was going to be in what we called wearables and digital, and what was our play on digital. And we decided that getting into the hardware wasn't exactly what we wanted to do, and our bet was going to be on community. We made our first acquisition with a company called Map My Fitness, or Map My Run, Map My Ride.
How many people use those things? Anybody? Look at that. Tons of hands already.
So you'll see hands going up. There were 20 million registered users when we bought the company, December of 13. And in just 12 months, they grew over 50% to 32 million users. And so when you look at what that meant in the size and scale, we then decided that we weren't asking the right answer. It's that we didn't have the right question to ask. And so we decided that in betting on community, agnostic was very important. An open platform was very important to us. So we decided to double down on what we had with MapMyFitness. We bought 2 more companies. One called Endomondo, which is a GPS tracking application just like MapMyRun or MapMyRide. And the third was a company called MyFitnessPal, based out of San Francisco, led by a guy named Mike Lee and his brother Albert. And this is a nutrition site. It was really the third leg of the stool. And we thought that if we could contain this amount of data and put it into one place and be able to truly empower the consumer with information that would allow them to enrich and enable their lives, it would be powerful. Scale is incredibly important here. In just the last 2 days alone, we've had more than 350,000 people download one of our 4 apps that we have today. So incredibly proud story of what we have and where we're headed now.
So now, they also made, and Kevin made an announcement yesterday, something called the Health Box. So add on now. So start with the concept of community and now the Health Box.
Well, we were definitely playing chess and not checkers when we got into this game. And so what that meant is that our play was on the community of how can we truly enrich lives in our community. So now, again, counting more than 160 million people, Health Box is meant to be a system. Because wearables to date have never really given you true information about yourself. Sure, they'll tell you, how many steps you took, or they'll tell you how long you slept. But allowing or empowering me to make proactive decisions about my life or my health and fitness was something that we believed needed a system. And the system comes in 3 parts. The first part is the wearable device that you have, and Jenny has one as well. It'll track how much you sleep. It'll track your steps. It'll also do a number of other things in checking resting heart rate and several other pieces. It's got accelerometry in it. The second device is the heart rate strap that decides when you're going to exercise. It'll tell you how hard you exercise, how many calories that you burned. And the third is the scale. And the idea of this is being able to track your weight on a daily basis. And if we can give you this frictionless devices, including the band, which has a 7-day battery life and charges in less than an hour, it's something that we believe can create a true picture for the consumer, and something that we have called the Record platform that we hope to eventually merge our consumers into and say, if I know how much I slept, if I know how many steps I took, if I know what I weigh, if I know how much I ate and what I put in my body, imagine what we can do to articulate a true definition for the consumer that can make them actually feel better.
So this takes us to our first. It's actually going to be a very, I think, exciting run together here. But the first announcement, which is obviously UA Record, powered by Watson. And so you'll see the very first thing. So why don't you talk a little bit about, and you're actually going to show some of the very first insights Watson offers here.
So the exciting thing about this is what it can really do. Again, there's 3 components that go into what makes, or 4 components that really, the 4 quadrants as we call it on the app. Sleep, activity, fitness, and nutrition. There's 2 other components that we added to that, as I said earlier, weight, and the last component is this thing called how do you feel? So imagine if you could capture all this data in just one place and have one daily dashboard for health. Because you think about it and go, I know more about, again, my car, I know more about my portfolio or my stock or my bank balance than I do about my own health and fitness. And it's a subjective answer. So if we could only take something from, taking those 4 quadrants, adding weight, and then this last feature that we call how do you feel? Being able to rate yourself on a 1 to 10 scale on a daily basis that just says, how do you feel? If I feel bright, I feel like a 10. If I don't feel so good, I feel like a 1. And being able to take that insight and take that information and say, imagine if I could look then, and I could truly take myself and allow myself to be able to make proactive decisions about the days that I rated myself a 9 or a 10. Because you look and you think, what does that mean? Because there's 3 ways that we hope that people will be able to compare themselves. You can compete if you'd like, but hopefully you're going to compare yourself against, number 1, comparing against myself. If I had this data of the wheel, as we call it, and be able to look at it on a monthly basis, and say last month that my data, my information, it basically looked like this. And there were 3 days where I rated myself a 9 or a 10. What's the activity that I did leading up that allowed me to rate myself that 9 or 10? Well, I slept at least 7 hours. Well, I definitely exercised in the morning. I ate no more in the MyFitnessPal protocol of either registering whether you had a heavy day of eating, an average day of eating, or a light day of eating. So I had no more than an average day of eating. And then the third quality that we have is the ability to take this information and to truly be able to do something with it. The second component is the competitive nature of competing with your friends. So I know how I compete against myself yesterday, last week, last month. But how do I compare against my friends, others like me, whether it's my friends from high school, my friends from work, my family? And the third component is this feature where we brought in IBM Watson. And this is a feature that tells us about what it means to find people that are just like me. So just like me imagines that in my data set of the 160 million people that we have on our platform today, I have an ecosystem of roughly between 40 to 45-year-old males. There's 4.6 million males just like me. And of those 4.6 million males, the average weight of them is 192.4 pounds. The average run for those that decide to go and exercise, that use jogging or running for their exercise, they run at least 4.1 miles. Their average sleep is 6 hours and 38 minutes. Their average calories consumed on a daily basis is 2,174 calories. And imagine if I know that if I eat less than 2,000 calories and I have a weight goal of losing 10 pounds in some period of time, I can start dialing in the things that I need to do, the decisions that I need to make in order to make proactive decisions to improve and ultimately to enrich my life. In the future, we dream and we think about insights, or the way that Watson will be able to empower us. And there's things like, whether it's an example from the American Cancer Society study that says that spending an excessive amount of time sitting, at least 6 hours or more during the day, decreases a person's life expectancy, regardless of whether they exercise regularly or not. This is an insight that Watson will give you. It's pretty scary at some level, but it's also empowering and allows you to make decisions to improve your life. In the future, it'll deliver personalized call to actions based on your activity. For instance, if my ideal sleep time is 7 hours, I only slept 5, and I was planning on going for a run, because I always go for runs on Thursdays, it may recommend that I maybe just take a class, do the elliptical, perhaps do a yoga class, or something a little less stressful or a little less tense. That's the type of information that we believe we have, I think, to bring to bear. And so when Watson is taking the program of 160 million people, just like me, and being able to deliver that back in a proactive way for me and for Under Armour, and frankly, for all consumers all over the globe. And again, simplicity is at the key of whether it's HealthBox, or whether it's the data and the information you get, or whether it's the simplicity of just looking at that basic wheel every day.
So the first capabilities you'll see with Watson are just like me,
yes.
And then goes on from there to the cognitive coaching. You want to talk 1 minute about cognitive coaching, and we'll wrap up on that.
So we believe the future that we have in the world is like, how will coaching truly be able to help me? And that is where you're using things that's saying, like, to be my coach, again, within my data set of the 4.6 million males just like me, how can I really lean on Watson being able to triangulate in a workout plan or a program for me? You know, things that it will be able to give me that data on a daily basis. Again, in a very subtle way. It's not marketing to you, it's not advertising to you, it's just simply giving you information where it doesn't have to be a personal trainer that costs $80 an hour. But it could actually be a Watson system that'll personalize something just for me, finding others that are just like me who want to get better.
So I think, Kevin, together, I think we both believe we will change lives. And at the same time, I think one of Kevin's famous sayings he always says to his own team is, but at the same time, we're going to still sell shirts and T-shirts and sneakers, right? Yes. So at the same time.
It's a very simple process. That, like, we're going to do a lot of cool stuff, but at the end of the day, the one thing we know, the more people exercise and work out, the more shirts and shoes they're going to buy. And so there's a logic to all of this, believe me. So we encourage you all to know how much you're working out, know how much you're sleeping, know how much you're exercising, and then again, don't forget to buy shirts and shoes.
You got it.
Thank you so much, Jenny. Yeah, really wonderful.
Ooh.